Welcome back, episode 74 of the Ground Up podcast. Devastating news at the time of recording. Charlie Kirk was assassinated in America, in Utah, at a college campus debate. Any takers?
Yeah, he's only 31, which is crazy.
To be honest with you, I kind of stay out of politics. It's just a bunch of people sat around talking with very serious expressions on their face.
Keir Starmer looks like there's going to be an Asda in the Midlands looking for their manager because he's disappeared.
Nice and dirty.
Nice and dirty.
Dirty.
What sounded good in the brain sounds terrible when you say it sometimes.
It's hard at the moment. People taking long leases now with social housing, whereas they might have gone private if it was a booming market.
I don't think there's ever been a more important time to ensure that when you're committing into a deal, you have a dual exit.
Everyone was saying it's tough.
I just want to do more.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, 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 making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 74 of the Ground Up podcast. If you don't know who we are, we're four property developers from the UK, and every week we get around the mic and we chat shop about business, property, the markets, stupid people in government who are ruining it all for all of us, and a whole host of other things. So if you enjoy it, make sure you share it with people. This podcast consists of Dorian Payne from Wales, Jack Jiggins from Rich Places, and Stuart Wyeth, who's currently in Disneyland, living it up. He's on his own as well, which is a bit weird. And myself, Ryan Bidemont.
A fast pass as well.
So in this episode, we're going to be covering the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, which happened yesterday at the time of recording, just the political climate and how heated the left and right opposing sides are becoming, particularly in America, and we're seeing that now in the UK as well. And we're also going to be covering the dire straits of the economy and what that will mean for investors, developers, business owners, how you can hedge against these things, what you can try and do to mitigate what might be a really bad market, what is likely to be a very bad market. So we're going to talk quite a lot of strategy here, catch up on each other's businesses. Everyone's been quite active as well. Systems, processes, hiring, all sorts of things like that. So lots of nuggets in this episode. Guys, how are you getting on, D? How's biz?
Nice and dirty. Well, I don't...
Dirty.
Are you trying to talk sexy?
Dirty. Yeah, is
It's
that
true,
sexy business?
Nice and dirty.
For those listening to
Nice
this,
and
we're recording quite early, so brain is like semi functioning.
It's 6 a.m. right now.
And what sounded good in the brain sounds terrible when you say it sometimes.
It's fine, mate. You get a pass.
But yeah, look, business is tough, the landscape is tough, and everyone fucking around here and I'm speaking to is tough. The government brought out some nitrate issue, or the NRW brought out a nitrate issue. The government don't have a response for it or a solution for it. So with one fell swoop, one issue of a report, the fucking over 100 plus homes in our immediate pipeline are stalled all of a sudden. That's how volatile development can be. Just like 2 years ago, it was ecology. Everything was going fine, and then the ministers brought out a new ecology update with immediate effect, affecting sites already in the planning system as well, and that stalled several of our sites. So this is just the one massive downside with development is you can't control the regulation, and it can come in faster than you can get permission. So because of that, you're always in theory at risk. But other than that, pipeline's still growing. We've got some good sites. I've always said the only way to hedge against it is by doing more deals, and every deal you do, trying to have minimal capital in really, and extended terms with the vendor. So that's the only way we've kind of hedging against it. But yeah, we've got a big site now that's going well, and we're due to set it soon. And there's a couple of other stuff that we're working on, and I just want to do more. What about you?
Yeah, same, mate. Same. Just don't want to hit my table. I got a coffee on the side. So just can you quickly explain? Because obviously we've got nitrates here in or neutrality here in Teesside and it's a ball lake. It's going to cost me 70 grand across 2 sites, and I've done everything possible to try and figure out how to reduce the cost. There are some things you can do, but where are you at with it? Have they got any means of buying credits or getting past it, or are you just
No, so basically in Wales specifically is something called there's an issue with the special area of conservation. So it basically is elevated phosphorus levels in SAP river catchments. And long story short, what NRW National Resources Wales have issued a report basically saying that the conditions of those rivers are not very good, and that because technically development contributes towards some of that, but mainly farming. But because development contributes a minority towards that, then they can't issue until we can prove there's a betterment. They can't issue any uh, decisions. But the problem is no mechanism. Whilst they've dropped the report, no mechanism to calculate a betterment has been given. So there's nothing. There's nothing to. How do you? Nobody knows how to actually and the problem is as well, they've also not really consulted with Dŵr Cymru, which is the main water infrastructure company down here, because I mean the options really are that you can do potential on-site mitigation, but we don't know how to calculate that. And then the one big one is that we could potentially have Dŵr Cymru themselves have planned infrastructure upgrades or works or whatever for treatment plants and stuff, but between them and the government, it's just been dropped, and everything's got to stall. And like it'll eventually resolve, like always. But what they're doing is they're just dropping a problem with no solution, and now basically saying stop everything. Now we've got to talk about a solution, and who knows how long that could be. So, but there's no credit scheme in place. But what probably needs to happen is they need to investigate what infrastructure they need to build in order to restore the quality of those, if that's possible. How are they going to fund that? How do they calculate who needs a credit, basically? Do you know what I mean? What that level of definition of betterment? How is that? Because we've obviously got some sites with existing buildings on, some sites that have existing use on. So how would you calculate a betterment? With ecology, when they brought it in, it was there's the same thing. It was they just dropped it and they said it's just got to be a net benefit. And then so how would you define that? Because in England they have a calculator, in Wales they don't. It was subjective, still is subjective in a way with the local authorities ecology officer. However, they only think about their job. Their job is to prevent development and promote ecology. So the standard was extremely high, and that was just causing endless issues. So yeah, just it's the government's way again, as usual, of just this is how they solve problems, by fucking taking 15 steps back first.
Yeah, mate, that's fucking. I mean, apparently Nitrate's already holding up something like 150,000 houses in the UK, and well, they've just added
I
another
think
100
it's
to your
more.
pipe.
I think it's 300,000.
Is it? Fucking
Yeah.
hell. It used to be 100 odd. I mean, they have brought it in more areas. So it's just what the fuck? Like, what is just the stupidity of this environmental bullshit? But anyway, Jack, how's your week?
Yeah, good. Monday was privileged to walk around MCR development sites to do a little bit of learning, delivering 2,500 units a year. They're a Manchester-based firm, hence the name. We went to see a 80,000 square foot office building that they're doing a very extensive fit out for, a Cat A fit out for a airline tenant to move in. And we also saw a massive resi new build development scheme. I think it's 340 units. And we got to ask their execs loads of questions. We actually met with head of construction, which was interesting because he was definitely not a public speaker. And it was quite interesting to see someone semi-technical. I mean, he was the construction director, so I think there's over 300 people in the team. But it became evident how, I suppose for any of our listeners out there, any property event you get up and you do an elevator pitch, any event where you get to, present a short presentation, all of that is helping with your public speaking. And clearly this guy had zero experience in public speaking. I mean, there wasn't a lot of us. There was probably only 10 of us, and it was really clear he was really nervous and struggled to get the point across and go through the details. So it just goes to show the importance of public speaking. But that was pretty cool. I've also seen Dorian's new build sites and the Hill Group sites, and I would say they're not quite as organized and clean and tidy as those two admirable developers that I latterly mentioned.
Is it?
So it was interesting because I was like, oh, if we're worried about elfin safety, I think these guys need to probably be worried. And that's not saying that there was anything untoward on site. It just wasn't as organized as like Dorian's is like a military operation. Which
we still have HSE investigations. Wow, they come around like once every 6 months.
They just don't like you, mate. Don't worry.
Probably.
yeah, that's because when someone asks how business is, you say nice and dirty. Yeah. Yeah.
Was it good though? Yeah, like was it good perspective experience? Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Does it always make you know when you visit people like that, Jack? And I don't want to sound like we're fucking thinking, but does when you go to those places and you meet these people, do you ever start thinking to yourself, there's no reason why I couldn't do this or couldn't run this, so there's no like, you know, is it?
I don't think that's truer with any other profession than developers. Developers are so like, I feel like nonchalant no matter what size they are. Like even we met that Splash guy, didn't we? Tom, can't remember his second name. He just seemed like the most standard bloke, lovely bloke, just a standard bloke, and obviously doing massive like regeneration projects.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Do you know what I actually felt? Obviously, I'm like you guys, and I just come loaded with questions, these things, and really try and soak up the opportunity to be able to ask those questions. But the way I felt that their business is successful is they've been around for a while, and they've definitely made money in a good period, like really good money. And I kind of feel that they're now paying their way into professionalism. So I feel that a lot of the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s developers, I could reel off a whole list of a few that I know. A lot of them have buggered off to Dubai now, but they made money when, I don't want to say it was easy because it was never easy and there was always risk. And there was also, you know, downturns. And a lot of developers that I know have gone bust and then come back and so on and so forth. But I feel that they made really good money in a really good period, probably in the sort of late 80s, 90s. And now they've just got so much cash to deploy. They don't have to be that good. And I feel we're almost like trained Jedis in a bad market, because in a bad market, you've got to be really fucking good because it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, we haven't had, I was chatting to a developer the other day who said, how long have you been in this, Jack? And I was about a decade now, about 10 years. And he was like, well, I feel sorry for you because you've never really had a good market. You've never really had, you know, and I completely agree with that. So they seem very MCR, this is very speculative with their acquisitions. Like the office building we went to, they landed a 15-year lease with a huge airline. The site's in Luton. And I was like, what would you have done if you didn't land that lease? Because they're spending 7 million quid on a building that I don't think is worth 7 million quid if you don't have a lease. So I was like, what would you have done if you didn't land that lease? And they were like, well, we knew we'd land a lease. I was like, but you didn't. You bought it. You never know if you're going to land a lease until you actually got signed paperwork. And they were like, well, we took a little bit of risk on that, and we wouldn't have spent the money on it if we didn't get the lease. And I was like, but then you'd have been lumbered with a building that you can't spend money on because it's not worth more than what you need to spend on it. So it's kind of like, well, I can't take that speculative punt because my investor will be like, right, so that building that's now attracting business rates, 250 grand a year, costing us money every month in finance, what are we doing with it? And I'll be like, I don't know. I was hoping to land a lease. That's not good enough. So they are quite speculative. Even the Resi site was a speculative purchase, and had quite a big like water main through the site, which they then had to readjust the planning. And I'm thinking, no, it's not as dialed down as I thought it would be. So I definitely felt like we could do this.
Well, MCR Group are private, aren't they? They're not a PLC.
Yeah, privately run. run by a guy called Anil is the main man. He seems very involved, and he seems like he just sort of buys bits up. But if I haven't looked at their sort of they're probably audited accounts. So you could probably have a look, but they're probably just sat on shitloads of cash, and they don't mind if it takes 10 years to get a site through, which is not the benefit we have. We need, I need to get a deal in, get a deal done, and get the money back out for a number of reasons: returns, risk profile, reputation, pay the team, move on to the next one. So it's interesting, but always an eye opener. One interesting thing that they said, which is probably one of my quick takeaways that I can share, is the construction director. He's got a lot of experience, apart from public speaking. He said a good rule of thumb is if they manage their bills, they bring in external contracts and basically package it up, similar structure to what you do, Dorian. But their rule of thumb is for every £1 million construction value, he believes that you need one more person on site. So it obviously starts off with site/project manager if it's a £1 million build, and then as you keep going up, that splays out into more people. Such as if it's a 10 million GDV build, you might need 2 site managers, 2 project managers, 2 QSs, and that's kind of his rule of thumb of head count, which I found was interesting because we've always battled with how many people do we need to? We're delivering £36 million worth of stock, and we've got 2 project managers, which sounds a lot of delivery for very little resource. And you never know if the project managers are efficient or you're actually trying to just overwork them. So it's interesting to see that. We obviously don't have construction in-house, so we can deliver more turnover per head, but that's GDV. So our construction values at the moment is probably 12 to 15. So we are punching way higher than that, but we don't have construction in-house. We're managing the contractor. So that was an interesting metric for anyone that's looking to grow a construction business. Dorian, how does that sit with your...
In construction management, where you're managing the supply chain and etc., then what I've heard metrics of trying to get to 1 million revenue per employee, because obviously it's quite efficient because you're subcontracting out. And then in terms of site size, I think the value is difficult one, because really it's look at Wales, for example. £1 million. Where do they operate? Where are they operating?
National, but they're based out of Manchester.
So we've got our site structure is more based on just the logistics and the size and the complexity of the site. And it's just more what resource do we think we need, and then we'll cost it in as part of it. But overall, from a construction company or a construction management company, then we look at the number of employees we have in total versus the company, either revenue if it was stabilized, because obviously sometimes you have to invest for growth, and the kind of the nice golden target would be around about 1 million per employee. That excludes our subsidiaries like Civils and M&E, where that will have a different metric. But yeah, that's how we do it. It's a combination of the overall revenue per employee and then a site specific, looking at the sites themselves. Like, for example, we've got a site where it doesn't matter the value of it. The fact of the matter is we need to have a banksman on that site because of the health and safety risk. Like it would just need to have an employed banksman on there full time.
Yeah, obviously, I think it's kind of a rule of thumb, but it's an interesting metric nonetheless. I mean, there's a few things, like for an example, they said that they have so on one site we're on, there was we have a specific QS for this project, and I actually think I'd prefer have 2 QSs share 2 projects, because I think the cross understanding of costings and quants and working in collaboration benefits those types of roles. So I completely agree, and there's definitely different ways of managing.
And we have project teams, so we have a contracts manager, a QS, and a technical manager that sit together in a bank, and they look after 3 to 4 projects each. But so whilst we don't have 2 QSs technically on the same one, because we have the the technical manager, the QS, and the contracts manager. Contracts manager is a bit of an important role for us because they are kind of like a mini MD for that project, for those projects. They're meant to be multi-skilled across construction, across commercial, across design, and they kind of the drivers for it. So if anything happened to the QS, the contracts manager should be well versed in packages, in who's doing what, in the numbers, because they go through it, the cash flow because it's built from their program, etc. So that's how we try to get out of that. And of course, if anything happens to the contracts manager, and a new one comes in, well, the QS is still there and can just instantly debrief them and get them back up to speed.
And also, quick shout out as well to Jack Jiggins, because we did a 17-hour charity paddle sesh last Friday. I was just thinking of it then when you're talking about construction. I was like, oh, paddle. And that was wicked, mate. It was a good vibe, good event, good people. Started having some beers toward the end, at like 8 o'clock till 10:30, and I felt a bit ropey. Beers, dehydrated, not eating that much, knackered, and playing paddle wasn't the smartest idea, but it was a good event nonetheless, mate. How did it go from your perspective, Jack?
Thank you for coming down, you two. Really good, really good. I actually worked out that we played over 200 games collectively, and get this, and over 200 games and over 4,000 points.
4,000 points.
In 17 hours. I had to message Dorian because I had to work out some averages on scoring because we definitely got lazy at some point in scoring.
Well, when I was there, it started off with the board and everybody was in it. But even by the time I was leaving, there was people were still playing the game. Like, oh, I didn't write my score down. Oh, what was the score? And just
yeah. I mean, by the end of the day, we didn't even after you guys had both left. Dorian obviously left sort of earlier on, but Ryan was there until quite a late period, and Ryan played a long stint. I must admit, you and Matt played a really long stint, and I couldn't bloody beat you either, which makes it even more annoying. But by the end of the day, we would just be playing, and we'd be like, "What's the score?" No one would know the score because we're so delirious. And then we just carry on playing, and we just play the point again or whatever.
Yeah, no, I came up early and then got back, so I felt quite good. I contributed towards your charity event, and I still got back to the office and still had a nice, productive day at work. So it was a double whammy, and I brought Victoria with me as well, didn't I? So she's captured some content, and of which she's currently editing. We're gonna share, and it was a good event, Jack. It was, so thanks for the invite, and it's good job it's good news that you raised you beat your original target, and it's going to go to a good cause.
Yeah, I think we're sailed past £4,000. We're trying to hit 5, and then we'll probably close it out. So the donation link's still available. It was also good to see some Ground Up network members there as well. Shout out to Jordan, made a good effort to come along. And
speaking of, little segue, we've got another event coming up in November. We're doing go-karting, guys. Doing go-karting, and we're going to we've still not properly planned it. Oh, the sunrise is coming up. It looks lovely. We've still not properly planned it, but we have a live event that we're going to do in January as well, which is the idea of like a proper networking day. And before that, there's a go-karting event in November for anyone that likes go-karting and wants to come and chat shop. And it's not going to just be go-karting. We're also going to do like a hive mind session together, go out for dinner, do a few hours of chat and shop and trying to help people out on strategy, or if anyone's got any ideas they want to bring to the table. It's going to be in London, and you can now, it definitely is, because I put the link in our descriptions now. So the description of the YouTube video or in our Instagram bio, you can click the link and see a link tree to events, to the podcast, to our website. We now have a website as well, and you can get some tickets. It'll be a good sesh.
Moving up in the world.
Moving up in the world.
How was your week, Ryan? How was Darlington?
I mean, I'll keep it relatively brief, but essentially, we're doing quite a lot of hiring at the moment. I'm not going to lie, which we just seem to need to keep hiring all the time, which makes sense because all the stock we deliver, and we're only delivering more and more and more stock and getting more investors on board, but we're also then managing this stock. So it means that portfolio of managed stock is constantly growing. So we're constantly needing either more maintenance lads, or we now need more hires in the lettings business. And we've realised now that when we finish delivering this pipeline, we'll be at over £850,000 worth of letting and management fees, which is great because that's nearly £1 million revenue business. And I love the lettings business. It's just great residual income. It's
Not many people who say that.
yeah, mate. Yeah, I mean, it's just it was the plan really, was to build this delivery vehicle to then create this sort of nest egg on the back end where it all drops into, where there's this strong residual income. And ultimately that's where we can really scale our operations in the Northeast and acquire other agencies and offices and offer the maintenance service as well. So really good. We've now got something like 7 maintenance guys who also operate in the refurbs, and I've got another interview later today with another guy, and we're finding good talent at the moment. We really struggled for a few months early in the year just to get people in for interviews for maintenance, and it seems to be that there's a lot more interest now. I wonder if that's down to something in the market or just the strange timing of the year. But honestly, most of my weeks for the last few weeks, last month or so, have just been systems. I'm just rebuilding everything and reconsolidating, centralizing everything, getting the most out of Monday. We've got AI guy who's constantly rebuilding new things. Got the client portal. I'm stealing some of Dorian's ideas as well that he's got his coder doing, like synthesizing all of our emails into
Oh, I
one
didn't connect you, did I?
hive
Shit.
mind.
Right.
No worries, mate. No worries. I'm not going to do it for a few months anyway, because got to build the client portal first. But it feels good, every day I'm taking quite big steps forwards in making our staff's work easier, and I'm now getting all the feedback from staff going, "This system's great," and I'm like, wicked, because it's been many hours sat at the laptop, and everyone's seeing the benefit from it. Which sounds maybe a bit sad, but when you're a business owner and you know that your staff are seeing massive benefit from new system you're implementing, that means efficiency, that means better margin, that means better service to clients. So it feels good. But other than that, not a great deal to report. Everything's just chugging along. Neutrality is pissing me off because there's 2 sites where I'm like, I just don't want to pay it. I just really don't want to pay it. It feels like an absolute con. So I got those 2
Yes.
sat, but we're starting 18 apartments have just started yesterday. We're doing the guano removal and all that stuff. So it's nice to get on another bigger site.
Guano
But,
removal.
yeah, guano, yeah, the pigeon shit.
Alright.
It's carcinogenic, so you need to bring in
No,
specialists
yeah.
to
Yeah.
get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, mate, that's me.
Quick question that I think will be useful for our listeners. If you run a management business in HMO, single lets, management, or managing your own stock, at what point do you hire in a full-time maintenance person?
Depends if you want to bring it in house. Quite a lot of letting agencies don't, because they're just not good at operational things like that. Like, we know most agencies around here just outsource and just have a black book of subcontractors that they use for maintenance, and it's those guys who have these extensive lists of maintenance jobs that they never get around to. I know some of the numbers because some of our staff have come from other agencies, and it's crazy. Like, they could be sat on 300-400 maintenance requests that have been there for months and they can't get around to them. So I think it depends on where you're at and if you want to bring it in house. But yeah, I don't know the specific answer. What do you do, mate? 'Cause
I mean-
you manage your stock.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the process of bringing it in house. That's the reason why I asked. So we're actually I haven't actually had a tot up of how many units we're going to have in like a few months, but we were at about 140 doors in management, and I have a feeling that will probably be more like 170 in a couple of months with the projects that we've got coming on. And we just find exactly that. There's external people that we work with that I've literally got a list. Well, not my list, but the lettings team's list. It's like 25 maintenance things. Some of them just never get done because there's things that are less urgent and things that are urgent, and they're just constantly doing the urgent things. And it's difficult to find reliable maintenance people where we're based, because anyone that's decent goes into self-employed work and they do it direct to the customer and charge a fortune. And anyone that's shit, we then end up churning. So we use them and we're like, fucking hell, they're not problem solvers, they're shit. So it's a difficult one, but where we slightly struggle is not only quantum, but also it's difficult to find people that have their own tools and have their own van. And if they don't, then that investment is huge, because you're then technically funding quite a significant cost to fix the problems, which you can, fix that door frame, right? It's 80 quid. But now you've got to fix that door frame, it's $4,000. But eventually that will come back and you'll save capital. So it is a difficult one. And then also when you do have one specific maintenance person, they can't do emergency call outs because they're typically working a 9-to-5 job. And then when you do have a permanent person, they can also be unreliable and not turn up if you need them to turn up because there's only one person rather than. So I think it's an interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually now I'm piecing this together in my mind a little bit as if there's a few things. The vans is funny because we're about to get a fleet of 5 vans for the maintenance guys. Robbie's convinced me that that's the best thing to do. It's not actually that. It actually saves us in costs in a roundabout way because we can we'll save it on the mileage contribution that we give each week. So long term, we'll save money on that.
Is your fleet, are you putting them on maintenance? So if they break down, is covered.
We're just going to lease them.
So if they break down, you still have to sort it out.
Yeah, but if there's anything wrong with the vehicle, we just give it back. Next day, just give us another one. So should be pretty decent. But I'm just thinking of actually hiring the maintenance. So what we did, and this is, I suppose, a benefit of vertical integration. When we brought in the maintenance staff for the first time, we brought on 2 guys at the outset, but we used them in their spare time. They were working on HMO refurbs, so we could fluff them in with the labor pool in construction, which would save us that committed overhead and then drop onto maintenance as a priority as and when. And then over time, as we just built up more and more maintenance revenue, then now we've just got a split where there's a few of them full-time on maintenance. The other ones float between doing the domestic refurbs and back into maintenance. So we've kind of got a nice buffer. So the overhead isn't like killing our management revenue, which I suppose is the trick you're going to have to find, Jack. It's like when you hire the first lettings person and you take it off of an external managing agent. It's like what's that critical mass or the overhead of management fee externally to then bringing someone internally. So you're probably at that point now where you just employ someone internally. Just have them do that.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we're looking to do. Because there's just a raft of we're coming back round to. I actually think our HMOs are fitted out really well. Our first HMO is 8 years since its initial refurb. And it kind of doesn't need a lot. So I think we can quite quickly get on top of that. But it equally comes with estate management jobs. We'll probably cross hire them from Central Suites into XP to help with some bits there. Like we've just finished our 5 cluster flats, and that's like 24 blinds need fitting. It's not really a great job for your main contractor to be doing. But it's a great job for a handyman.
Snagging as well. They could do snagging and shit at the end of handovers. Yeah, mate. I mean, nice, sweet. Let's move on to 2 topics. One is devastating news. At the time of recording, we are the 11th of September, Thursday, and it was last night. Unfortunately, Charlie Kirk was assassinated in America at one of his that is in Utah, at a college campus debate. I love Charlie Kirk. I've been watching him ever since he helped Trump with his campaign and help him get into office. And I watch a lot of his debates. I think he's a rigorous free speech advocate, open to chat with anyone from any side of the political spectrum. A good man, a young father, and clearly this is looks like a clinical assassination, which we can only assume is from either something nefarious in the deep state on the left side of politics, or a deranged left fan who's been trumped up by all the rhetoric in the media and how right-wing people are Nazis and criminals and deserve to be killed. And apparently at this debate he was doing, there was a load of left-wing protesters who were chanting for Charlie's death, and then ultimately that is what happens. It's tragic news. Very sad to see that this is where the political heat has been going, particularly in America. And we're seeing it over here in the UK, but it's not so violent yet. It's more policy driven. It's more economic impact. But I fear that this is the start of what's the best way to say it? More justification for violence between the two sides of the political spectrum in the West. I don't know what your guys' view is on that. What do you think of this situation? Any takers?
I mean, it's so obviously I follow US politics probably more than the average Brit. And I've actually been following him as well. I think he's an extremely, he's only 31, which is crazy. So I think his sentiment and arguments are very clear and concise. He's obviously very good at debating. Certainly outsmarts the masses. But I mean, obviously, we've had the Trump shooting, and this is technically within the same 4-year office as that, and it's put quite an interesting spin on things in the sense that it's now, if you were coming up as a, I'm just going to get to it. I hate to say it, but I think that obviously guns are not allowed in the UK like they are in the US, but I think it puts some heat behind what is actually being required to run a country. And that is what I think Trump is prepared to do, put his life on the line. I believe Charlie Kirk will probably have the same passion, is to put his life on the line to do the right thing for the country. Comparing us to the UK, I think we have zero passion right now. I think if you, held Starmy up to a difficult situation, he would just buckle.
I think Reform and Rupert Lowe, there's a lot of passion on that side. Obviously, they're not in office, but there feels like there's passion coming back to the political spectrum. But I don't know. I agree that in government, it just feels like they're a bunch of cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Carr outlined it the best. He said Keir Starmer looks like there's going to be an Asda in the Midlands looking for their manager because he's disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I find US politics so different to ours. It's just so crazy, and it is a really sad story that there's now a family missing their father, and it's thoughts are with his family. But it's just, I think it's going to cause a bit of uproar. I don't think Trump's going to let it go lightly. I don't think he can let it go lightly. And
he just put a big statement, didn't he? A big video statement.
Yeah. Yeah, and also there's pretty nasty ways of dealing with things in the US. Like I don't actually know what the jurisdiction is in Utah, but there still might be the chair as a death penalty. So yeah, I mean it's still really fresh because it's literally last night. Obviously we're recording this. I think it will probably come out a week later, won't it?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds. I mean, what more is there to say, really? Dorian, have you got any?
Well, so I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't follow Charlie Kirk as much as you guys have, so I'm actually looking at it just from quite an independent point of view. I hear of US politics, but to be honest with you, I kind of stay out of UK politics as and I stay out of US politics because I just really do not like politics. I've been up close to it kind of firsthand to see how they potentially make decisions from a small business point of view. And I think it was just absolutely appalling, to be honest with you. It's just a bunch of people sat around talking with very serious expressions on their face. Like
You've been in number 10, haven't you, D?
Yeah. And I've been in number 10, and I've been in some of the closed Lancaster House, and I've been in some of the closed sessions with ministers and stuff. And I'm honestly, guys, I just don't think I could do it because I'm just not built for that level of fucking bullshit. It's
Do you know what? Actually, it's funny you say that because Elon Musk was he just did a live talk with the All In podcast guys. Anyone who doesn't know who they are, not to shout another podcast that might compete with us in terms of our viewership retention, but they're great podcast. Bunch of billionaires get around a mic, and they had Elon Musk on, and Elon obviously famously went in to do Doge at the start of the year, and then in April left. Or May left, I think it was maybe May, and he said at this talk yesterday when they asked him, what's the one biggest thing you learned, like going in? What's your biggest takeaway? And he was like, bear in mind, this is the guy. If there's a guy on the planet who can solve problems and solve government, it's Elon. And he literally said outright, the government's fucked. There's no fixing it. It's just you can't fix
And
the deep
UK
state
UK is the
actors.
same. UK
Yeah.
is the same.
Oh, we're
Don't get
worse.
me
We're
wrong.
worse.
I seen, even with the bits I did, it's still, a very, very small scratch on the surface. But if what I seen is testament to what goes on, then all the issues we have, I can fucking see why. It is really so full of red tape, bureaucratic. Everyone, like I said, everyone just sits around with serious expressions, waffling shit. No one comes up with actual practical solutions. As soon as you talk about a practical solution, because you have 30 people in a room, they've all got big titles and they've all got big opinions. They want to disagree with you just because they want to disagree with you rather than think about the big picture. And then the only consensus you end up with at the end of a meeting with those people is another talk needs to happen. And then, in fact, 15 different talks need to happen because they all want to go back and speak to their teams or somebody else that wasn't in the room. And then they all need to, and you think to yourself, what really needs to happen is this door needs to be locked and somebody needs to be the decision maker. And they basically need to make a good enough decision that's in the best interest and not get everybody's consensus. Because I think that's where the fucking, well, what I seen anyway is what the issue was. It's like, no, you kind of couldn't move forward unless you had 100% consensus. I'm like, well, that's not, with that, you're going to make decisions way too slow. They're not going to be the right decisions because people then have too much power themselves and they want to be important. Uh, that's just what I was seeing anyway. So, like we're talking about Charlie again. I haven't followed him. I don't know, but what I do know is that political assassinations have been around for forever, literally. And I'm not saying it's acceptable, but this is kind of one of the biggest risks that happen if you want to be on the pedestal and put your neck out the line. You will, politics divides, doesn't it? So if he was really on the one side and pissing people off, then unfortunately you get on both sides of the coin. You'll get people out there that want to physically hurt him because they can't compete with the intellect. That's what happens. It's like when they when they cannot compete with the intellect and they just get angry. It's kind of like an argument. You don't know if I've been involved in some of these myself. You're out and you're having an argument with somebody, and you're kind of you've owned what we called you've owned somebody. Your comeback was excellent, and they can't do it back. So they just clenched their fist and start fucking throwing punches.
Yeah, or shouting. Yeah.
Or shouting, yeah, or pushing and
I
stuff.
mean,
And you're like,
ultimately, it's the foundation block of democracy is the idea that we don't resort to violence like we did back in the day, and instead we have clear debate, and it's the institutions, particularly the universities, who've radicalized this idea that there's one side of ideological thinking that's right, and everything else is racist, it's derogatory, it's this, it's that. And it comes from the educational system and young people growing up into a world, with a worldview that's just completely distorted and not grounded in any objective evidence or any rational thought. And ultimately, those are the people that usually get radicalized at a young age. And in America, they've got fucking access to guns and all sorts, and it's just a bad concoction of things. But yeah, mate, it's sad to hear you say that, because I've heard that so many times from watching different podcasts and people like that.
it's definitely true. But I think the shooter, I don't know, but from what I've read so far, it does seem to be somebody a bit more professional than just a random lunatic.
200 feet, I think that.
Yeah, they set up well. They shot accurately from a distance, and they slipped right into a crowd, and even the secret forces aren't able to find them as of yet. So you can't really just be a randomer and do that unless incredibly lucky. So there is something, it's not just a lunatic. It's
Well,
somebody
they've
with
still not. It's not fully disclosed who the Trump assassinator was. I know they did. They know the person was, but there was a lot of there's some weird, shady shit around it, and it doesn't seem to have really been fully vindicated yet. So I don't know, mate. There's too many conspiracy holes that we could go down there. But obviously, I'm sure the Trump administration are going to do everything they can to find out who the culprits are, and I think this is going to be a fight against the funders of the
well,
left-wing establishment.
yeah, well, apparently the Trump shooter was that Thomas Crooks guy that's died. So
Yeah, Yeah. But it was there was a whole backstory of him where he was a donor to both sides in a sort of weird way, and then the left tried to say he had. I can't remember the full story, but I just remember it wasn't a clear picture. It was opaque, and no one was satisfied. But it kind of just got killed off, and no one really spoke about it again. But
I was shocked to see I think the shooter is like a middle to late aged white guy, and I genuinely thought that there'd be some sort of gender, but like genderness behind it, because one thing that Charlie Kirk always spoke out about was that there's always only ever been two genders, and that will always remain. So it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds and understand motives. Back to like a scenario that I wanted to run, which Dorian was talking about, the UK politics, which I think is an interesting perspective to put on it, because Dorian just said they have a discussion to create a discussion, and then they have a discussion about the discussion they created. Is if you think about a consortium decision that needs to be made, and scenario this with the UK politics, you can kind of interpret how just time wasty they really are. So could you imagine the existing Labour government being the jury in a jury decision? You could just imagine them not ever coming to a solid decision. And that, picturing that is quite an interesting thought process, because, even the general public in a jury tend to get a decision decided. And as Dorian said, the case will go on for 4 years, probably until the end of their term.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is they were already in government. They were like, right, we want to create this small business thing, and we're gonna look to issue. Their method of doing that to promote a small business in the UK was to have to basically create a report to issue to government, like the Prime Minister or whatever, and that the timeline for their report was trying to do it before some budget. So it was like 9 months out or something. And then from the back of that, they wanted these series of talks. And when you're listening to it, you're like, there's not. I couldn't. Even the most senior person in the room, I couldn't pinpoint anybody that was actually making a decision to be like, we're gonna do what we're gonna take that idea forward. We're gonna scrap that idea. There was none of that at all. Zero of it. It was everybody's talk and opinion was basically allowed to rabbit hole and then allowed to go off for separate conversations. And then it was like, I was just like, this is madness, in my opinion. I can't see how you're going to get anything practical done here. So,
there's
but
no
anyways,
there's no
I
incentive
don't.
for them to take risks, though, is there? That not one of them wants to poke their head above the parapet because it's not in their interests. So
No, but if it give you a lesson for as a business owner, like, because you can't do that in private business when you've got bills to pay, when you've got payroll coming out at the end of the month, when you've got to make a decision on whether you take a client on or you make a sale or you fire somebody or hire somebody or sign up to a direct debit. The problem with small business owners and business owners in general have to make decisions on a daily basis, and they're the ones that have to make them, and they sometimes take expert advice, but then they have to fucking own it and decide it. The problem is if you do that, what I started seeing in politics, if people start doing that in politics, they start saying it's not democratic and then more dictatorship. I'm like, well, I think that people blur the lines between somebody just making a decision because they've been entrusted to a certain level of power to make a decision, versus trying to please everybody, which is just impossible, especially when you're dealing with opinionated professionals. As you can't please them, they want to be right themselves.
yeah,
Even in business, you employ people and they want to be right, they and I don't know if you guys have had it, but I've employed people who are more qualified than me. They've given me their opinion and I've gone against them but said, look, thanks for your opinion, but this is how I see it, this is where the business is going, and they don't like it either, but you've got to do it.
yeah, yeah, mate. Yeah, the entrenched
I've got it on
interests.
screen,
I was gonna say, yeah. Have you? How much time have you got, mate?
None. I've got it. I'm late.
None. You're shooting. All right,
Yeah,
Big Dick.
sorry.
Well, nice to see you, mate. Have a
How'd you know?
have a good rest of the week.
I thought he was looking at me in the fucking toilets at the paddle.
Yeah, mate. Always checking on you. Make sure you're all right.
Watch out, Jack. You're gonna be left alone with him now. Be careful, mate.
Yeah, it's gonna get
Okay.
freaky. Now it's gonna get dirty. Safe one, D.
Uh,
See you later, mate. Well, Jack, we could maybe close this one out on the topic of where the economy's going and how to maybe give some advice for hedging against what's looking like a recession around the corner. What that may mean, not to be doomy and gloomy, but I think it's important that we try and offer some useful advice, tactics, strategy, ways of hedging your business, your portfolio, your development site, depending on what part of the cycle you're in. What do you think? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, it's a prevalent conversation because I went to a Goldman Sachs dinner this week and no one in the room runs a property business. Well, actually, there was one mortgage broker, but everyone else is in some form of other business, retail products, shipping products from wherever they need to be, recruitment, all different walks of businesses. And everyone was saying it's hard at the moment. Everyone was saying it's tough, struggling, waiting for either something to happen or they're going to have to make changes. And then on top of that, I think that there's been a lot of conversations in our industry saying it is difficult. And when the government is suppressing confidence, you have to take action to protect your business, because our business typically is very volatile to some quite political factors, which is interest rates and where's base rate going for cost of finance, which then has a knock-on impact for the confidence of the buyers or renters or whatever it may be. So it's very logical to try and not just go with the stream. I think you've got to plan ahead and try and do what you can do to sometimes speed things up, create margin, protect exits. I know a lot of people taking long leases now with social housing, whereas they might have gone private if it was a booming market, and that's to protect downside. What's quite difficult in the development world is we're delivering sites that we've been on for 2 years, so it's kind of very difficult to pivot and change our business model or our strategy on something that we've inherently are still delivering that's from before. And we never know where the market's going to be when we take on a site. A lot of the due diligence and numbers that you run at the outset has got to protect you against the potential outside if the market wobbles a bit or comes down an element or doesn't go up. But what we're doing, we're just in full focus on delivery, focus on finishing off as best as we can, finish on trading out as quickly as we can. We're in quite a flurry of sales and exiting stuff into the market. Protecting your exit is definitely a really logical thing. What Ben and I commonly do is we just look at strategy, right? We look at literally every deal, just write the deal on a bit of paper and go, right, project one, where are we at? Where are the risks? How can we de-risk it more? Would our investor be interested in buying us out? Could we get a different potential exit? Could this one actually be sold and then keep maybe another one, and just go through and even if you don't end up doing any of it, scenario that play and see how you can kind of solution provide and make it a better deal even once you're in delivery, because it's obvious getting an architect to maximize the usage of the square foot plate, and it's obvious to go to planning, and it's obvious to try and negotiate the contract value to build it out as cheap as possible. That's all obvious stuff, but then the strategy stuff is where you really get paid. I think that if you can look back at some changes you've made and gone, that was a smart move, moving that from there, or changing the ownership of that company, or re-leveraging that asset, even though you had to pay ERCs, you pulled out a few $100,000 cash flow, which then helps the main business to start thinking about strategy more and looking at the individual deals. I do think it's going to be a really good period to have cash. I think there's a difficult we're in a prolonged difficult period of trading, right? So death by 1,000 cuts, it's difficult, and that has a knock-on impact to people that are struggling to trade through that difficulty, which means it's great to be buying and absorbing more sites and taking more on. So I do think that it would be really logical to get in a good cash position. One, cash flow, because you never know when your next payday is coming and things might get prolonged, but also to actively go out and do more. Some of the you could work. Let's use for an example developers that we were talking about it with MCR guys. You could have developers trading from year 2000 to year 2009 who have made less money than in the credit crunch, who picked up stock, traded well out of it, and in a few years have outperformed them. And that's difficult because property is quite a slow game, and it's almost like building blocks, right? You're constantly going, right, let's do that, let's do this, do that. So I think improve cash flow, strategize on the deals that you're focusing on, have a very holistic approach, and think of some ideas how you can improve the sites or improve your business position by sort of manipulating where you're at with the sites. Be in a position to capital raise and attract capital to act on sites, because I think it's, for years people have been saying it's impossible to find a site. I'm starting to see that turn a little bit now, where people are like, oh, that's a good deal, but I don't want to take the risk. So you've got less competition, and I think service-based businesses are always a safe bet. You can almost guarantee on people. A lettings business that's not likely to go under in a recession, unless it's taxed to fuck or the structure changes, because people rent, and that's that. And you would like to think of the spread of a portfolio, a lettings business can still operate in the green. Same as maintenance. I mean, obviously it's a legal requirement in a lot of maintenance to have things safe, so completely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, a good exercise every year, I think, is what we do is we do our personal goals, which I think is really important as a director, to understand what you want out of the business, and to create a single page of understanding where the leadership in the business is before you then implement it into the business. And then I think it's a good idea to analyze your three weaknesses, like understand your risks, understand how you can manage those. Natural business owners, and you're probably the same. Like, we don't really celebrate our wins. We don't look at what we're best at, unless it helps us with bidding on sites and understanding strategy. We look at what do we need to improve, what do we need to change constantly. What about you? What do you think we need to be doing with a potential looming recession?
Well, obviously, I agree with everything you said. I think maybe emphasis on knowing how to be offensive and defensive with your strategy, just concerning development sites. I don't think there's ever been a more important time to ensure that when you're committing into a deal, you have a dual exit. You can retain it because you have enough proportional equity in the scheme to be able to park that in a worst case scenario and stress test those rates if rates do climb again, rather than just having an exit, which is a sale. I know that's always much harder in the South, but ultimately that just means, I think, more of a capital raise on the equity piece, just to ensure that, look, if this and this happens, and obviously the writing's kind of on the wall now from the 10-year gilt being sky high, employment data and everything else showing that we're going to head towards a tricky market, which means end users going for mortgages, wanting to keep their cost base low as a family or as an individual, is going to be pretty prevalent. So then likely selling is going to be difficult over the next, even more difficult than it has been over the last few years, because the government's not going to be in a position to backstop these first-time buyer mortgages as the way it tried to during a high time of QE after COVID. And I think you just got to think about those things. And I don't think there's ever been a time where it's just so important to know that you can retain a site if you had to. And if that means parking equity and disappointing an investor because you didn't get the outcome that you ultimately wanted, to sell and recapitalize and redeploy, that just doesn't matter. If it means losing capital because you're tied into or pigeonholed into one exit strategy, that's where developers go bust and have done historically, particularly when our capital markets dry out, which is literally what we're seeing in droves. And that all filters down into the game we all play. So I think that's really important, being offensive on your acquisitions and deal structuring and doing everything you can to eke out margin at the point of transaction, of getting the site over the line, and options and position agreements to try and keep a cash buffer. I think it's going to be super important. We're talking about big sites here. I think smaller sites, there's going to be a great opportunity to acquire cheap stock. And ultimately, for me and you, mate, and Jack and Stuart, I think these times of an economy are great for those who can endure it, because we'll come out way stronger of the back end. And I know that all of us will survive because we've survived the last few years. And there's obviously a lot of learning lessons there that should help us through this next period, which will be worse in some ways, but not as bad in other ways. Obviously, we don't have COVID lockdowns to deal with, which was a nightmare. But I do think we're going to have a very strange financial market. I'm not sure entirely what that means. Will base rate go up? Can they afford base rate to go up? America's looking better on the inflation prints for things like energy, food consumption, stuff like that, and that's good, because if America does well, that does trickle down to us over here as well. So hopefully we see BOE cuts again by the end of this year, and that should be the balancing spectrum that we need as developers, because it's all about cost of capital to us. Hopefully that's what we need to set us up nicely for 26. But yeah, I just think stress on that point. If you're entering a scheme, a big scheme, and there's capital on the table and you're taking on PG risk and high interest rates on dev finance, just ensure that you have enough of an equity slice from your investor or from yourself to be able to retain the scheme if you needed to. And if that's what you have to do, fuck it. It's better than losing money or going bust. That's one part of it. The other part of it is, where's the opportunity? Where's the optimism here? Now, to me, the optimism is in the devaluation of the pound, which I think I said in one of the last podcasts. But I don't think there's ever been a better time to fix in some cheap mortgage debt against what is a scarce asset class. And I know there's going to be a whole load of wokies out there who go, you're exploiting property. And it's like, look, we don't write the rules for this game. This is how it's been played for a long time with a credit-backed system. And ultimately, if you hold pound-denominated debt against a scarce asset class, and then they have to print more money and devalue that pound so they can keep funding government expenditure, then ultimately that debt diminishes and your proportional equity grows, and that's how you get quite wealthy and how you can hedge against market turmoil long term. So I think there's an opportunity there. I do think they're going to end up potentially taxing more to just try and eke out revenue from the property sector, but I don't know how much they can really do that without just killing the market off. So they're going to be a bit stuck. Now, what about if you're a business owner? Let's say you're a business owner right now. You want to scale your business, whatever type of service business it is. Obviously, keep lean, employ systems. We've got AI now and all these other things to leverage admin tasks and things like that. What would you say, Jack, if you're looking to employ more of a staff base and grow the bottom line and sales?
I mean, if all of your team aren't using AI on their desk already, I'd get training sessions going and get them to look into where they can use it. If a team member's going, we need someone else in the business to help with this. First thing I'll say is, is there a way that we can automate this or use AI? 100%. I know that you're all over it and integrating a lot of AI into your business. I mean, but the things that we're talking about, it kind of doesn't matter if it's a good market or a bad market. You should be making these changes in your business anyway and following the trends and improving the nature of it. I completely agree with you with the exit on stock and being able to refinance at the end of a scheme rather than potentially having to sell, because when you can't sell, diminishing value returns is a problem, and then you've potentially got to let it out, and you can't then not sell it. You've got to take a huge haircut and make a loss. So I do think that a really good exit is being able to hold stuff, and as you said, when you hold stuff and you leverage it up and that mortgage is fixed, and obviously the income from the building then services that mortgage, then you're obviously benefiting in many ways, including capital appreciation, which is an interesting one, because with all the government changes to eradicate a lot of the privately owned investment owners, which I think is going to push rents up, which means I think affordability of housing is going to go down. Like, less people are going to be able to buy homes, which then makes it easier for us to do what we do, which is again probably going to trigger some more tax. But I would also say focus on a cash flow and focus on asset building. And James Sinclair calls it fast pounds and slow pounds. I call it cash flow and asset building. But that focus is really important. So you've always got cash flow coming in, and you can focus on building on those blocks to slowly escalate your portfolio every year. And then 5 years will pass, and you've got a few assets you can refinance, and you're naturally then going to grow it and sort of roll it into reinvestment and recapitalizing.
Yeah, and just on the employment piece, if I think it's really important in this time where business owners, particularly the SMEs, see the opportunity and try and stay optimistic. Because the market isn't great. The government's a shit show. The political heat's crazy. We've got cultural sabotage happening across the board. So it can be quite hard to keep a positive outlook. But ultimately, that's how we fix the economy. But all of us playing our piece in our small part of the economy and doing what we can to stay optimistic, to stay driven, find cost savings where we can, leverage modern technology, because we're fortunate that this modern technology is here. And Replit, which we spoke about before on here, they've just done a massive upgrade where now you can program AI agents as well with vibe coding. So we're straight on that. Matt's been doing some R&D yesterday on building another agent to help in the sales side. There's so many gains that can be made to save you money. And I think the older generation that's running businesses are the ones who are likely going to go, fuck this, I'm going to go quids in, sell up, leave, or just roll up their business. And I think it's the young guns, it's the guys, in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who are going to be coming out the back end of this in a better position. This is talking about service-based businesses, and we've got to see the opportunities. That there will be opportunities, and you've got to stay in the game. It's all about staying in the game. And for anyone that just goes, it's too hard for me to grow my business or to start a business or anything like that, then that is the defeat that's gonna screw the country over. We've got to stay optimistic. And I know we're quite negative on this podcast sometimes, but it's only because we're relaying what's happening in the market and trying to be useful with potential feedback and just what we're thinking. So you shouldn't close your eyes off to negativity, because sometimes it's real, but don't buy too much into the rhetoric from the media, and try and just look at your market or your silo and see where the opportunity is, where you can cover downside, where you can find marginal gains operationally using better systems, better technology, better sales tactics. Maybe you need more fee earners to try and make sure you're bringing in higher sums of revenue, and look at a sort of proportional difference in where you're allocating resources to ensure you've got better top line coming in, and then sort the ops later rather than maybe forward investing into ops pre-sales. There's just ways you can look at allocating your time and resources to try and hedge against what might be a drier consumer market, which is almost certain at this point. And that's about it without running through a proper case study. But definitely those businesses that like lettings, like maintenance, like construction. I mean, construction is always difficult, but we're not going to stop building regardless of the market. We have to build. We can't not build. The whole country just goes to shit really quick. So where's the opportunities? I'm looking at assisted living at the moment as well as another potential model to add to our investor base, because that's going to be very, very much protected from a government funding standpoint. Regardless of the market, then they're just not going to cut, disabled benefits or mental health benefits, like proper mental health benefits. Not I've got anxiety, I need benefits, but as in, I can't shit or shower on my own, I need carers and stuff. That's the opportunity that I'm seeing as well, because there's a huge need. Commissioners locally are struggling for placements and stock, and we're obviously a stock provider, so we're trying to integrate care providers into our pipeline, so we have optionality for our investor base and go, look, you can go one or two ways: private sector, or we can tender it out and see if it works in the assisted living. So there's things you can do. You don't have to sit on our hands and go, well, market's fucked, so I'm just gonna be really calm and quiet and I'm just gonna ride it out and see what happens. Those people, I think, are going to die over the next, as in their businesses are going to die over the next few years. I don't know if you agree with that. Anyone who's got a skeptical outlook, I think, is already lost.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the harder it is for, there's a lot of businesses out there that they're doing more work for less return, and I think there's going to be quite a shift in baby boomers, which a one generation that are worth more than every other generation put together, that have cheeky little couple of people to 20 people businesses that they're operating, and they might not have someone to hand it on to, so they might just go, you know what, I'm done with this. So there's opportunity spiking there. And we've got aging population, so as Ryan points out with assisted living, also elderly assisted living and care is a growing market. And then there's also, as we touched on, tech enabled. There's so many ideas you can come up with. Like, I do think that the AI influence on the world will massively disrupt a lot of jobs in law and accounting. But then when you look outside of that, there's a lot of things that it can't change. It can improve the autonomy of a construction site, but it can't deliver the work. I think we talked about it before. When do the robots get on site and start handballing things around? We're so far away from that. That there is clear business areas with opportunity that can be created. Interestingly, I remember when I was younger, I was like a landscape gardener kind of thing for almost like a landscaping business. And we were doing this guy's house. He had something like 300 trees planted, huge site clearance, and it was a mega house. Like, as you mentioned at the beginning of the call, I'm in the area of rich, is how you describe where I live. But it was probably like a £5 million house, and apparently he earned his living by one quick venture. Like, he heard of like a shipment of flags, English flags or Union Jack flags or something, that were going to be all burnt and thrown away. So he said, I'll take them and I'll transport them. So all he had to do is transportation and storage. And it was just before the Queen's Jubilee. And he then it was like an event like that. I can't actually remember the actual event. But anyway, he sold all these flags, and in that one acquisition to sale, which took only a few months, he became a millionaire. So having that outlook of arbitraging value in a market space is really important, and to be able to spot those opportunities. And a lot of really successful entrepreneurs do dip their toes in many things. Like, the things that we talk about that we do on this podcast aren't where we've tried. We might have tried 999 other things to get to the thing that we do. So it's definitely worth keeping your eyes and ears open about opportunities where value can be created, and that's a really good time to do it in this market because it's being disrupted.
Yeah. I think just speaking to that point as well, I think the opportunity for developers right now is understanding the market, understanding the financial market, the state of the economy, and what optionality that offers to an investor sat on cash. They do not, if you're an investor, you absolutely do not want to be sat on the pound right now. You don't want to be sat in a savings account where you're accruing at maybe 5%. That's a known way to lose money, lose purchasing power. So obviously there's a risk to deploying capital, but without that, you're never going to grow wealth or sustain wealth. And in a time where they're going to print loads of money, the pound is not a good place to be. So what is the options to your investors? This is for developers. Well, they could go into the stock market. It's never been more volatile. You've got global supply chain disruptions. You've got tariff wars. You've got AI reducing capex costs, which is a deployment of capital. So VCs are kind of all over the place. This is a really strange time for the stock market. Commodities can be stable, but unless you know what you're doing, you're not going to make great upside. And then there's savings accounts, which is just obviously a stupid thing to do. So a proxy like property, which is a proxy against the pound, but held in a scarce asset class, backed by the UK judicial system, which is, you can question our politics and everything else, but our property rights are very, very firmly established. I don't think there's a better place to put your money. I think property there's Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin's great, but you can't leverage it the same way, and it doesn't pay dividends the way property does. So I don't think there's been a better time to get in the market, and that's what the big boys are doing. Smart capital allocators, BlackRock, Blackstone, Granger Group, Lloyds. These big boys are buying UK property in the tens of thousands of units, and they know, because they know, and they've got the analysts and the researchers and all the algorithms to understand where the market is going, and holding UK assets is the best way to go. So that's an opportunity for developers. Like, learn, study this stuff, understand it. So when you're pitching and when you're trying to raise capital, you can really rather than just sell the merits of a scheme, you're actually selling the merits of investment optionality for investors, which ultimately is what an investor needs to understand. And some investors can be very sophisticated, but they might not actually understand these dynamics. So I think that's a potential opportunity. Speaking to your flag kind of scenario, where buying a load of flags, where's the upside there? And some people may look at property and think, where's the upside in property if we're going into a recession? Well, the pound devaluation, the big boys and the smart capital coming in, scarcity in the market. It's a great time to buy property, and there's going to be cheap stock coming up because old landlords are going to be selling. So yeah, that's what I'd say, mate. Anything else you want to add for this session before we close it out, mate?
Covered off a few bits.
Yeah, done well today.
More shootings in the US.
Yeah.
Bit on the economy.
Yeah.
Nice and dirty.
Nice and dirty. And our go-karting, guys, for anyone who at the end of this episode, make sure you click the link. Come go-karting. It's gonna be fun. And big love. Appreciate everyone who tunes in. The Online Safety Act, which came out in the UK, has damaged our views, or it's damaged just everyone's views across the board, and we're trying to figure out how to sort of salvage that in a way. But thank you. I think we get about 1,000 listeners a week across YouTube and Spotify, which we're very grateful for. And hopefully this is always useful stuff that we're covering. And feel free to drop us comments if you think there's anything else you want us to cover. We're leading closer and closer to the autumn budget, and that's going to become quite a topical conversation. France, by the way, is looking like they're going to get bailed out by the IMF. France is becoming a failed state very quickly. Yeah, there's going to be all kinds of shit that happens. So stay tuned. Hopefully we can be useful for you. Subscribe, turn on the bell notification so you can capture these episodes every time they're released. And have a good week. Big love.
Sub squalor.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate